Hey guys, this is Matthew and welcome back to Nerd News Today. This time around we have another WWE Ultimate Edition figure to take a look at today from Mattel. And what we've got today in the ring is the Ultimate Edition Charlotte Flair. This is a ringsidecollectibles.com exclusive, so if you want to get a hold of this figure, that's the only way to get one. Now, my initial reaction to seeing this figure once I opened up the box it came in was, OMG, this is probably the best Charlotte I've ever seen. But I'm going to reserve judgment until I actually get her out of the box. So first things first, let's just talk about this Ultimate Edition packaging. It's the same design we've seen with all the Ultimate Edition figures. It's a little bit larger than the typical elite size box, and instead of being a rectangular shape, it's got diagonal slopes on the top and bottom of the packaging. We've got a very large window to see the inside of this package and what the figure looks like. On one side of the packaging, we have a really lovely picture of Charlotte, and the other side just simply says Ultimate Edition Charlotte Flair. The back of the packaging just has a few short stats and a few sentences about who Charlotte is, as well as a really great picture of her in the outfit that we're seeing in this toy today, along with a picture of the toy doing a moonsault, which I think looks really, really awesome and kind of shows you what this figure can do. The one downside about the packaging description here is that it tells you nothing about where this figure comes from, what event it's based on. In fact, the only thing it really says is it talks about WrestleMania, but this is not a WrestleMania outfit. But we'll talk about that more in one moment. So again, the box is basically exactly what you've seen, but you're not here to see the box, you're here to see the figure. So let's go ahead and get Charlotte out of the box and into the ring. All right, so here is our Charlotte figure Ultimate Edition in the ring. So the question is, where is this outfit actually from? Well, this actually represents Summerslam 2018. And at that event, Charlotte wrestled Becky Lynch and Carmella for the Smackdown Women's Championship. And by the way, in case you forgot, that was a time period when Carmella was in fact the champion. Dark days indeed. And that night also represents the night that Charlotte then won the Smackdown Women's Championship belt, and then she would begin to slowly turn heel, and that would also begin the rise of Becky Lynch as super duper Stone Cold Steve Austin babyface in the women's division. So at least it was a precursor of good things to come. So let's take a look at this robe though, and this robe, by the way, originally was designed by Terry Anderson. That's the person who makes all of Charlotte's robes. She does some really, really beautiful work. And I think as far as representation goes in figure form, I mean, they really nailed it. This is just amazing to look at. It was a pretty unique robe, and I think that's why they decided to choose this one. Because, yeah, I mean, so far we've seen Charlotte in I think one or two other robes. I know they did the blue robe from WrestleMania, and I want to say there was like one other robed version of Charlotte, but I can't remember it. But this is a pretty unique looking robe. It's a really, really nice looking piece too. It's definitely a throwback to one of her father Rick's old robes as well. He's had a bunch of pink ones, so, you know, take your pick. There's some that look closer to it than others. But at the end of the day, it's definitely meant to resemble one of Rick's original robes. And they've done a really, really wonderful job here getting all these details. I mean, look at these peacocks here on the front, number one. And these designs are just really gorgeous in this silver trim. They've got all these little dots here that are meant to be different sort of sequins and jewels in her robe. The back has Flair on it. Look at this, all this detail, it's just amazing. Like, this is really, really gorgeous piece. I don't want to take her out of this robe because it just looks so good from every angle. You've got like lotus blossoms down here. The sleeves as well have some really great design work on them. And let's not forget that she has the top part here, which has got this feathery part. Really nice feathered section there. Like, man, this is a real beautiful piece. And this is another reason why soft goods are just so much better than rubber sometimes, because you couldn't pull this off with rubber, that's for sure. I could easily drone on and on all day about the robe because it really is that good. This is definitely one of my favorite robes, and I've had a bunch of different ones from Ric Flair, other figures as well. But this one here takes the cake. This is the chef's kiss right there of robes. Now, excuse me, Charlotte, I'm gonna have to, well, disrobe you because we gotta see what you look like underneath all of this. And so there's one Velcro tab over here, and be gentle with it because it's not that, it's not that big, but give it a yank, and we can go ahead and pull this off. And wow, okay, I am really, really continuing to be blown away by this figure here, just based on what I'm seeing from the paint as I'm taking the robe off. Let's go ahead, we'll hang that in the corner for the time being. So this is an Ultimate Edition figure, which means brand new tooling, unique pieces, lots of new things across the board. So let's first things first talk about that likeness. And I want to bring in Becky Lynch for a second here. We're going to start doing some figure comparisons early on in this review because here is Becky Lynch. She came out in Series 5 alongside John Cena. And this was the better of her two head sculpts. You know, when we reviewed this Becky Lynch figure, we weren't too impressed by any of the head sculpts, but the one I've got on her right now, definitely the superior one. In case in point for comparison, here's the other head sculpt she came with, which I call the Topanga head sculpt. It's terrible, but this Charlotte Flair, oh my God, that is Charlotte top to bottom. There's no disputing it. That is completely Charlotte Flair's head sculpt. Every angle, I mean, man, it just looks perfect. I mean, they got her nose, they got her cheeks, they got the eyes especially, they got the mouth. And the hair also is very, very lovely. What I like about the hair too, especially from all angles, is that it's both beauty and it's action. It's definitely a multi-purpose head sculpt, as opposed to Becky, where she had the hair before the match and then the hair after the match. Both of Charlotte's head sculpts are pretty much multi-purpose. They can be used at any point, and that's what's really great about them. Although, speaking of, Charlotte does have a second head sculpt. Let's go ahead and take a look at that one right now. And this one is, I guess you could say it's her after the match celebrating because she's super smiley. And again, another very, very good head sculpt. But for my money, I think the one that's currently on her body right now is the one I prefer better, but not by much. It's like a really slim margin as I'm looking at both of them together. I think it's just more they got the eyes better on this one. It's on her. The one that I'm holding in my hand right now, it does look like her, but not quite there completely. And it's mostly because I'm just so blown away by how good this one on her right now really is. The paint job as well is like perfect on her face. There is a little bit of schmutz on her forehead, but other than that, I mean, I like the paint very much on this. And as for the outfit in general too, I mean, this is some sick, sick painting here. I mean, this is high level detail across her tights, across whatever you want to call it, the thing that's here on her chest. My brain is blanking out at that at the moment. The boots especially, I love that you've got the CF on the sides of those. And look at all this detail here and just, wow, it's really, really just perfect. This is knocking it out of the park here. I'm really, really blown away by this one. We've got the tattoo on her forearm there, which looks very nicely printed as well. She also has the tattoo right underneath her side. And we also have the one over here. Man, really, really great looking stuff here all over this figure. Man, I cannot find a single flaw with this yet, besides the second head just being slightly not as perfect. So that means we're off to a pretty great figure here. And another thing I really like about this is she's got two-toned knee pads. I don't think I've seen that too many times before. I don't know if it's a first or not, but I haven't seen it a bunch. And it's accurate to what she wore, and it's very unique and very nice looking. So the outfit is a perfect 10. And same with the body, I'm gonna say, since this is pretty much primarily almost all new pieces here, very good. I mean, you know, I'm gonna have to do this because it's Charlotte after all, but yeah, they even got her chest correct because it has changed in appearance over the last few years or so. And yeah, they have to make a new sculpt for that. So they did. It's pretty much gonna be only used for Charlotte, and it looks really, really great. On that note, let's talk about articulation, because this is an Ultimate Edition figure, so she's gonna have a little bit more articulation than the normal female elite. But how much more? Well, let's find out. And to compare that, I'm gonna bring in Io Shirai from WWE Elite 79. We just reviewed her also on the channel, so if you haven't seen that review, go ahead and take a look after you watch this one here. So I think really the main difference we're gonna get between them is the double jointed elbows. Io Shirai does not have a double jointed elbow, Charlotte does. So yeah, like Charlotte can turn her head left and right. She has the shoulders that can go up and down. We've got the bicep swivel, everybody has that. She has the wrists that can bend and turn, everybody has that. But what she has that is unique to her in the Ultimate Edition line is the double jointed elbows. Because yeah, Io Shirai cannot do that as much as Charlotte can. We haven't even bent that elbow all the way back. So a lot more flexibility over there. We have the torso here, the buck that is on a kind of a rounder peg. Io Shirai does have that. And I think that's kind of what they're doing now with the Ultimate Edition females. I think that's what they've always been doing with them, in fact. The waist turns, same as everybody else. She's got very good articulation, thigh articulation, same. Double jointed knees, but they are gonna be a little bit hindered because of those knee pads. Feet can rotate. Her ankle joint is pretty much same as the Elite figures, but what's different is she has a toe joint articulation, so she can actually open her toes. That's really the main difference between her and the other figures. You know, I think the female figures in general always have had better articulation than the men because of their chest pieces. So in that regard, they've always been ahead of the curve. But she is super duper articulated. Only thing you gotta watch out for is these knee pads, just because they do block the knee joint, but that's kind of what we've come to know and love about these figures. So Charlotte does come with that extra head. Let's try it out right now and see if I can swap it out. See how it looks. Pops into place perfectly. That's a good pop, that's a good sign. Yeah, there she is with the other head sculpt, looking good. You know, now that it's on it, no, I haven't changed my mind about it. It's still not as good as that first one, but it's still a very good looking sculpt. So in addition to the extra head and the robe, we get 4 more hands. We've got 2 open hands so she can do some chops, and we've got 2 hands that she can do some posing with. And because I didn't mention it earlier, when I was pulling the figure out of the package, I had to be a little bit careful because one of the hands had a little tie around it. The other 3 didn't, only 1 did. Go figure. I don't know why, but that's what they did. And on that note, if you are taking her out of the box, make sure to be careful about the robe because the way that's put in, it's put in a little funky. And be careful when you're pulling out because you don't want to rip it. It is a very fragile material, it feels like. Not that it can't handle a little bit of a beating, because it is a toy after all, but it is a little bit delicate, so just be careful when you pull it out. So there she is with the additional hands on. They came out super easy, went back in super easy. And in terms of accessories, that is it, which is a little bit surprising because again, this is the match where she won this. This is the Smackdown Women's Championship. And no, she didn't come with this belt. I'm borrowing from Becky Lynch's Ultimate Edition right now, because Becky is Becky 2 belts after all. So yeah, if you want to get this belt here, you got to get it somewhere else. And you know, I kind of wish they had included it, because really, it's such an iconic, important moment, and this figure is trying to capture it. So why not put the belt in there? I don't get it. We'll just pretend that she's got it, but yeah, that's a bit of a downside. So let's compare Charlotte to a few other figures as well. I've got her here. So we already saw her next to Becky Lynch, Ultimate Edition Becky, and we saw her with Io Shirai. But hey, let's bring in the Iconics, the recently broken up Iconics. We've got Peyton Royce, we've got Billie Kay over here, and I also happen to have an Alexa Bliss. So we're getting kind of a different range of heights. And that's the one thing I guess I'm trying to show off here, is the fact that everybody is different heights. And there's some interesting scaling going on here, so that I appreciate. It looks really nice together. And also have to see a little bit more of the differences between the sculpts and the joints these days. You can see here with Billie and Peyton that the shoulder joints are a little bit differently shaped than what Charlotte has. It's a little bit more pointy as opposed to Charlotte's more rounder sculpts. But I think that just might be a figure-to-figure kind of thing, depending on the height of the toy itself, depending on the height of the person they're basing it on. But it all looks really nice together, so let's just get these other ladies out of the ring. And I'll give you guys a few glamour shots of Charlotte while I give you my final thoughts on the figure. So this is really great to be looking at this figure after we looked at that Becky Lynch from the last Ultimate Edition series, because that was a huge disappointment. And I think not just for myself, but for a lot of folks who are looking for that one iconic Becky Lynch figure, and then what we got didn't quite deliver completely. But on the other hand here today, with this Charlotte Flair figure, this one goes above and beyond expectations. I'm blown away by both head sculpts. They're both amazing, they're both gorgeous, they are both 125% Charlotte Flair. I can't say I've seen a better Charlotte head sculpt. And to be fair, it's actually one of the reasons I haven't bought a Charlotte previously, because I haven't liked really any of them that much. That Elite Charlotte in the blue robe, same problem. I thought the head was just not quite right. And some of the basic figures were better, but again, I don't want to buy basics, and they weren't still there. But this Charlotte Flair has completely nailed it. You will not find a better Charlotte Flair head sculpt on the market, and on that note, you will not find a better Charlotte Flair figure, period. This one really pushes the Ultimate Edition to the limits in terms of giving us great articulation, super height, brand new body pieces that are unique only to Charlotte Flair, amazing paint job, immaculate attention to detail on all of the tattoos that are on Charlotte's body, and of course that robe is just killer. And I love the bright color of it. It's gonna really pop on a shelf, especially if you've got her displayed loose amongst other figures or even amongst other Ric Flair figures. It's gonna really pop out nicely. You've got a great selection of hands to do a bunch of different things with her, and you've got that spare head sculpt. The downside is, yes, I do believe it should have came with the Smackdown Women's Championship belt. I don't know why it didn't. My thinking is that they basically just included it with Becky. They don't want to put the same belt in twice, but it's an important moment. You know, looking at the line of what they've done so far, and I think for the most part, anybody who's had an iconic moment that involves a championship belt has come with a championship belt. Now, I'm assuming that they didn't include the belt because of the cost of the figure already with the robe, because that robe does have a lot of detail. It requires a lot more effort to make that. But, I mean, at the end of the day, it's also a belt. It's not like it's that expensive. It's not that big of a piece. I think it should be in there. So that's really just the one misstep in this Ultimate Edition figure. But other than that, oh man, this is so good. Like, if I was gonna rank these figures here, Charlotte Flair is definitely very close to the top Ultimate Edition, and definitely one of the best female wrestling figures we've gotten this year. And that's saying a lot, because this year we've gotten a ton of very good female wrestling figures. I've started to collect the female figures a lot more than the men figures these days, in fact, because I find them more interesting visually. And really it's because they've got, for lack of a better term, more of a canvas to paint with. Whereas most of the men wrestling figures are shirtless, not much you can do with that. The women all have much more elaborate costumes, and that means as a toy, you've got a lot more things to look at. Charlotte is a great example of this because she has the robe for the entrance, which is just amazing. She has this intricately detailed, wonderfully painted outfit on her body here, which is great. The knee pads are great, the color really pops. You know, I can't really find any flaws with this figure. And you know, it makes sense, it's Charlotte Flair. Of course, she would be the flawless one in the bunch. So at the end of the day, my recommendation to you is yes, go out and buy this Charlotte Flair. This is the one to get if you only buy one Charlotte Flair out there. This is the Charlotte Flair to get if you only buy one Charlotte Flair ever. And that's why calling this an Ultimate Edition is absolutely the perfect moniker to give it. I would say this is a 10 out of 10 figure. If anybody disagrees with me, I'd love to hear why you think it's not. And I'd be willing to drop it to a 9 or maybe a 9.5. I think a 9 is still too low actually, just because it doesn't have that Smackdown Championship belt. But otherwise here, this is a perfect, amazing figure. Cannot get over this. So happy I've got this one. So yeah, scoop it up today. She's gonna be, I think, one of the better ones to get. Whereas Becky and even Shinsuke Nakamura are gonna keep warming pegs. Charlotte is one to definitely add to your collection immediately. And she is exclusive to ringsidecollectibles.com, so if you want to pick her up, that's the only way to get her. So that's our look at the Ultimate Edition Charlotte Flair figure. If you've enjoyed this video and found it informative and entertaining, please give us a thumbs up. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe because we do a ton of wrestling content here on Nerd News Today, including a vintage ECW series and a lot of other stuff coming soon. So one more time, I am Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today, taking a look at the Ultimate Edition Charlotte Flair figure. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys here next time. And of course, woo! Thanks for watching.